I could have gone to do a liberal arts degree or English or something like that, but I was looking at beyond that, and I was going, well, what am I going to do with this other than possibly teach? When God was giving out patients, I was in a different queue, and I don't think I would make a year in, year out good teacher. I would just lose track of things very quickly. So the other thing I was good at was science, so I did a science degree, and I ended up with a master's degree in molecular biology. And then I got married and came out here and became a full-time novelist. We just fell in love with Bellingham, and then we were looking for places to stay, and we were looking around everywhere else, but we drove out to Sudden Valley, and we have about 3 deer and 2 rabbits cross the road in front of us, and we were driving out here, and I'm going, yeah, we like it here. My first book in 1995, my first novel in 1999. The novel is called Letters from the Fire, and I co-wrote it with the man who I eventually married. It centered around the war in Yugoslavia at that time, which was affecting my family very deeply because we still have family back there. And so we wrote that. It was an interesting experience because it was so vivid and so visceral that people kept on trying to shelve that book in bookstores as a non-fiction book, and it isn't. What I always keep on saying is that fantasy is the silver tissue of lies into which you wrap some really hard truths, and they become that much more powerful and easier for people to understand. And in a lot of ways, fantasy is really important when it comes to that. I think some of the most important stuff that I ever wrote was a triptych of books, and each book is from a different point of view of a different character. But what I did was that I went to my molecular biology background, and I actually worked out an entirely biological, sound way that we're creatures could exist with our DNA as a human, as a different kind of human. So there's a lot in those books about bullying and discrimination and how we treat people who are not us. The things I like to read and the things I like to write tend to have a bit more going for them. When I wrote books like The Secrets of Jin-She, which is based on Imperial China, I had 3 shelves of research that I read 27 books on Imperial China before I started writing one. I put together collections of short stories by other people. My first one was called River, and essentially it didn't have a table of contents, it had a map of contents, which started out with the source of the river and then the stories that take place down the river, and the final story in the collection was down at the delta, and the river goes into the sea. So that came out a couple of years ago, and then the latest one that I did was this one. This is The Children of a Different Sky, and this was inspired by the current political situation, really, when the whole refugee bans started flying in the early days of the Trump presidency. And basically the proceeds from this book are going directly to a couple of refugee charities that are working with refugees, both internationally and within the United States. So it was just, I have to do something, and what I can do is, words are my matter.